Welcome to virtual training.
In this online module, we'll be discussing a roommate agreement, which is something you will all be asked to do within the first few weeks of the academic year.
This first section, we will have some undergraduate staff members talk about why it's important for you to do your roommate agreements with the residents.
Enjoy!
It's important to do a roommate agreement. It gets your residents on the same page and it creates a dialogue between them.
We do roommate agreements about 2 weeks after the residents move in. This is just so that residents can establish a relationship before you set some rules for the room. Some common problems that we address during the roommate agreements are cleaning schedules, sleeping hours, and guest policy.
Factors to make a roommate agreement worthwhile. As an undergraduate and staff member, you're going to want to go through every section. You're going to want to make it awkward now so you don't make it awkward later. You want to go through every section and make sure you don't miss anything, such as sleepover guests, cleaning habits, or anything else you can think of. And you're going to want to talk out any disagreement that you might have. If you see anyone being withholding, you might want to address that now.
Well done, Vante. Devin, Michael, and Bryce really gave us some great things to keep in mind when we're doing roommate agreements.
You know, Jack, I would completely agree with you. Now that we have those tips, let's keep them in the back of our mind and let's show you an example of how to do a roommate agreement with just 2 residents.
Alright guys, I'm here today so that we can go over your roommate agreement. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get started, we should probably set some ground rules. What kind of rules can you guys think of?
Well, I'm hoping we can at least just be honest with each other, you know. That way we can kind of get a sense of what we're looking at for this year.
I really agree with that.
Okay. Any other things?
I mean, I got nothing else. I mean,
I don't think so.
Okay. I think maybe just using I statements might be helpful. So instead of saying, oh, you like it too hot, say, I like it a little colder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So first let's start with study habits. How often and how do you all like to study?
well, I like to study at least 40 hours a week. You know, they say three hours for every credit hour, and I'm in about 15 credit hours, so I just hope to be studying whenever I'm not eating or in class. And I really like to study with loud music, so.
I study a lot too. My major doesn't let me, get any slack, so
Okay.
I have to study loud. You know, usually death metal and sometimes K-pop. Are you okay with that?
I mean, I'm okay with that as long as you don't mind that every now and then we throw some country in that mix.
I can't do country.
Okay. So let's talk about that, because it seems like you both have some similar interests. So maybe you have some similar music interests that maybe we can play instead of the K-pop and death metal, so that everybody's kind of getting what they need. Okay. So it sounds like that you have some similar music interests, so maybe we'll play that while you're studying, and then if you want to listen to your K-pop and country, you can listen to it in your headphones. Sound like a plan?
Headphones, yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I never would have thought of that.
That's why I'm here. I'm glad to hear that. Let's move on to guests. So how often do you like guests, and when can guests not be allowed in the room?
Well, I really don't like people that much, so the less the better, I think.
I'm not gonna have many guests over, but my girlfriend is gonna come over at least 3 or 6 nights a week.
Okay. Well, Bryce, housing policy does state that guests can only stay for 3 consecutive nights, so she can only stay for 3 nights. Is that okay with you?
I guess since it's against housing policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have to document you, and if she does stay more than 3 nights, that's what I would have to do.
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, any other guest things you want to talk about?
Just as long as you give me a heads up ahead of time, so I can be prepared. If you're having a guest over, that'd be great.
Yeah. Give them a heads up.
That's a good point, Cole. How much heads up do you want?
About a day would be fine for me.
Day. I can do a day.
Alright, awesome.
Welcome back. That was an example of how to do a roommate agreement form with just 2 residents in a traditional room setting. Now we're going to talk about some of the good and some of the bad things that happened within that video. We're going to start off with some of the positives now. Jack, what do you think Jay did well as an undergraduate staff member?
I think one of the things that Jay did well was establishing those ground rules at the very beginning. Asking the residents what they wanted when they were having the roommate agreement meeting, but also adding some of her own things, especially those I statements. I think that's very important for undergraduates to think about when they're going into these roommate agreements, because it's a lot easier for me to say, Don Vante, you like the room too hot, than it is for me to say, I like the room colder. And so making sure that they're using that person-centered language and they can talk about how they're feeling instead of how other people make them feel.
I would completely agree with you on that, Jack. Another thing I think Jay did well was really making sure that everyone's voices was heard. And making sure that when one roommate wasn't talking enough, she tapped them on the shoulder and say, hey, what do you think about that? Because you seem a little closed off. You really wanted to make sure that everyone's voices is being heard, as well as not it's just a one-sided roommate agreement form.
Right. One of the other really great things Jay did was talk about housing policy. When the resident said that his girlfriend was going to stay over for 3 to 6 nights a week, she very quickly was able to say, no, that's not actually going to happen because that's against policy. So it's good to make sure that you're keeping in mind the policies when you're going into these roommate agreement meetings so that if they're saying something that sounds a little bit like it could be not within policy, that you can be able to say it quickly and not have to go back later and tell them that something that they said is actually against policy.
I would completely agree with that. Those are just some of the small things, or big things, I should say, that went very well within that dialogue that they had. Switching gears a little bit, what are some things that you think you would have done differently or some improvement within the roommate agreement form?
I think it's hard to kind of tell this from the video, but it seemed like the roommates really hadn't talked about what was going on before Jay came in to do the agreement. And so I think making sure that you give the roommate agreement to the residents a day or two ahead of time so that they have time to look at it and fill it out might really help that conversation because then the undergraduate staff member really just has to go through and kind of bring up some of the different things and talk it through a little bit and doesn't have to write everything down word for word as they're doing the meeting.
That's true, and it saves you time on your end as well as an undergraduate staff member. Another thing that I think I would have done a little bit differently was probably go into depth a little bit more about how many times or how often you want the visitors over. I think she probably would have done that if we would have given them more time. But really talking about is 2 nights too many times within the room, even though it's allowed within the policies.
Yeah, so those are just a few things that we think maybe could have been improved upon a little bit, but still nothing that's making that roommate agreement not a good one. Now we're going to look at a 4-person suite because we know some of our communities have those types of rooms. So again, we have an undergraduate staff member doing a roommate agreement, so sit back, relax, and enjoy it.
All right, now that we've got all that done, let's talk about sleeping habits. Do you guys have any sleeping requirements?
Hello.
Like,
Hey, yeah, can I call you back in a little bit? It shouldn't take too long. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Bye.
perfect, because I definitely think that this deserves your full attention, so you feel like you're getting fair treatment.
Is it gonna take much longer?
I mean, we can get through it as fast as we can. Just make sure that we're thorough with everything.
Okay. Okay, let's do it.
All right. Do we have any sleeping requirements? Quiet, lights out. Do you like music playing? What do you say?
Quiet and dark and cold.
Okay.
I like to sleep with the TV on.
What about you?
I like it mostly quiet. Maybe a quiet TV would be okay.
What do you think?
I have a nightlight.
A nightlight?
It's fine.
Okay. Well, I know that I use a mask when I sleep. Have you ever used a mask when you slept? Just to make sure it's really dark?
No.
No.
I guess I could try.
Okay. I feel like that would be a decent compromise if there's a nightlight and you need it dark. Is everyone okay with like low TV? I know you like it quiet. I mean, you're in the other room though, so hopefully you won't be able to hear the TV from where you are. Is that okay with you if it's quiet? Okay. Everyone? All right. When do you guys plan to go to sleep and wake up in the morning? Just general time. You don't have to tell me exactly.
2:30.
Yeah. I'm a PM person.
Okay. What about you guys?
A little earlier than that, maybe midnight.
Yeah.
The weekends will be a little bit later.
Okay. I mean, as long as I think we're respectful of each other when we're sleeping.
Don't wake me up.
What about getting up?
10 minutes before class.
Yeah.
I have an 8 a.m. class, so I'll probably be getting up
Yeah.
at 7:30.
I like to wake up really early too.
Okay. Just like I said, just be respectful of people when they're sleeping. What about naps?
All the time.
All the naps.
I don't
Anyway.
take naps.
So the majority of us take naps. Is that what I'm hearing? The three of them? Did you say you like taking naps? I mean, so let's just.
I would probably take a nap when you're going to bed. So
Yeah.
I
Okay,
don't think it'd be a
that's
problem.
fine. That's fine.
Okay. I mean, let's just try to be respectful of each other. Let's go on to personal and community property. What items in your room are considered community property?
Nothing.
Yeah, don't touch my stuff.
Ever.
Like our furniture, like the futon.
The futon? I mean, I feel like that's a pretty big part of the room.
I guess you can sit on it. Yeah, just don't be gross. Don't spill anything on it.
Okay. Let's try to use I statements.
I hope that you're careful.
Okay. Okay, so community property, we have futon. What about your personal property? Like what do you guys feel like should not be touched by anyone?
Clothes.
Clothes. Unless you ask.
Shoes.
You
Clothes,
ask
shoes.
me.
Makeup.
Hair care products.
Okay, perfect. What do you think can be used and borrowed by guests? I mean, probably the futon goes under that one.
If I don't know them, they can't use my stuff.
I agree with her.
What do you guys feel? Alright, sounds good to me.
So that's an example of doing a roommate agreement in a 4-person room. Don Fonte, what are some of the things that Christine did well in that roommate agreement?
Yeah, the number one thing starting off is really calling the resident out about answering her phone. And you really want to make sure that you're doing that throughout the entire time, is making sure that everyone's present, because you want to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard within the roommate agreement form. So calling people out when they're not present, but also letting them know that this is important and it's going to come into place in the long run.
Yeah. I think that she did a good job. She would ask a question and let them kind of discuss it for a minute, and then re-ask the question after they had a chance to talk about it. So that gives them an opportunity to kind of talk it all out and for her to hear like what everybody has to say, and then for them to really come to a consensus.
Yeah, I think that's another key thing, especially with having 4 different people living in the same room, is making sure that you're having them talk it out, but then come back and get that consensus of everyone doing it. Another great thing that she did as well, in addition to that, is making sure that they all talked, which can be very hard within the roommate agreement with 4 people. And I think we'll touch on it later on, but making sure that we're not talking over each other. At times she did that very well, and at times she let that slip up. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good segue to make. I definitely agree. In a room with 4 people, it's harder to make sure that they're not talking over each other. And so I think if you're going into a room where you have over 2 people, even if you do have 2 people, but making sure that one of the ground rules you set is who's going to talk when, how you're going to be able to know if too many people at once are talking, or how you're able to confront them if one of the roommates is kind of running the entire show.
I would agree with that, and even going off of that, another great thing is making sure that all 4 of them are on one consensus and not 2 ganging up on each other.
Yeah.
And if you see that, call it out, because it's going to save you time in the long run. As you can tell throughout this video, you can kind of tell the 2 that was going to be living in the same room versus the other 2 kind of ganged up on each other. It was like that 2 versus 2 feeling.
Right. Don Monte, is there anything else that Christine could have done a little bit better in this video?
For me, I think that really we touched bases on it. We touched bases on some of the other things earlier in the video. So that I think overall that was a great roommate agreement form.
Great. So that concludes the roommate agreement online training module. Below, of course, you're going to find some questions to answer. We also included a copy of the roommate agreement so that you can take a look at that before you get here in the fall.
As always, please remember, if you have any questions and you took down questions throughout this video, please make sure you're talking to your senior staff about those. They're going to be a great resource for you.
Have a good